G'day, everybody, and welcome to Rolling Conversations. We're on again, and we're really excited today to have one of the fastest women in the world, a super athlete, three-time Paralympian, three gold medals at World Championships, two Commonwealth Games gold medals, an Under Armour global ambassador, and she's even had a Barbie designed after her. Can you welcome Madison de Rozario? G'day, Maddie.
Hey, I sound so much cooler when you say it all in a row like that. That was good.
Doesn't it? Yeah, I practiced it. I'm glad you liked it. Hey, Maddie, it's a real thrill to have you, as I say, and we said this for the last couple of weeks. The idea of Rolling Conversations is really to connect our community and to give people opportunity to see you and hear what you've been up to and ask some questions. So we encourage them questions through and comments. We'll screen them, make sure they're acceptable. But it'd be great for people out there to send through your questions and really engage with us over the next half an hour. So, Maddie, I wanted to start by talking about the Paralympics. Interestingly, you were, like everyone else, getting ready for the Tokyo Paralympics in August, September. How did you cope with that change to a delay of 12 months? And what do you do to your training as a result of that delay?
The initial announcement about the actual delay was actually quite a significant relief. I think, before the announcement actually happened, we were having all those conversations, within my own performance, seeing like what we thought was going to happen, that speculation that we all do. And the IOC had released a statement basically saying that there wouldn't be a postponement. If the games weren't going to go ahead as planned, they wouldn't be going ahead at all. And the Paralympics realistically was going to follow whatever decision the IOC made. And so that was, I think, a big concern for us because realistically it wasn't feasible that the games go ahead. The travel restrictions, the overall health and safety, it's at the end of the day, it's just sport and the risk was just, way too high for that. And so when the announcement came around, the IOC did a full 180 overnight after both Canada and Australia pulled our teams from the games, and the 180 actually came as a huge relief that we would get to, have that Tokyo experience. It would just be 12 months later.
Yeah, sure. And so let's talk about the Paralympic Games then. For those in our community, we know what you're capable of and the great breadth of to your program, right? So you race anything from the 800 metres right up to the marathon. What's your intention for your Paralympic program in 2021 in Tokyo? Have you made plans yet? Do you know what events you'll be targeting?
Yeah, look, we're planning on racing 4 events: 800, 1500, 5000, and marathon. It will be the first time I've done that. I feel like when I say that, there's this assumption that that's the norm for me, but it absolutely isn't. In Rio, we chose not to do the marathon. The closest that we have come to that is racing the 1500 and the marathon back to back on the Gold Coast a couple of years ago. But I've never done this before. I know a lot of athletes who have. In wheelchair racing, we do have the luxury of being able to span more events. The skills that you have in each one do lend themselves to the other, and the marathon training benefits the 15 and the 5000 quite significantly. So they do complement each other in ways that running doesn't. There's obviously so many similarities in our sport, wheelchair racing and running, but one of the huge differences is that we can do so many more events. So it's going to be interesting. And the program, if Tokyo 2021 follows the same program that we're planning for this year, it's basically 5 days in a row, 6 events on the track. The 800 will be 2 in the one day, with about a 4-day gap from the marathon. So it's going to be a very concentrated track program, but I'm relieved that there is a bit of a gap before the marathon's going to kick off.
Yeah, great. And for those of us, again, in our community, we followed your career over many years now. For those that aren't familiar, which is there a particular event you might be targeting? In other words, I mean, you're the world record holder in the 800 metres and the co-world record holder in the 1500 metres, but you've also had an excellent last 12 months in marathons around the world. You probably don't want to pick one event, but if there was one that you really do think is your pet event, is there such a thing across those 4 events as your pet event?
I think my favorite event and my best event probably aren't the same event. I think I've had the most consistent results in the 800. I think we've managed to really perfect how we run that race, and I think we have quite a solid strategy in place there. But the 5,000 is probably my favorite event because it's this middle ground that incorporates everything that I love about wheelchair racing in the one. You need that extreme fitness base just to make it through that distance at the pace that's required of you. And to do it at the pace that is going to be set, you need that extreme base, which I love. I love the training that goes into that. But on top of that, it's so incredibly tactical. I think that's my favorite thing about wheelchair racing is you have to go into these events knowing your own skill set and knowing your own weaknesses, but also knowing everyone else's skill set and weaknesses and being aware of how they're going to run a race. And if someone's moving in a certain way, what does that mean? How does that benefit you? How does that damage chances of certain things you were planning. So being so aware of all these things, and the 5,000 brings all those things together in a way that the other events don't. So yeah, my favorite event and probably my best event aren't the same.
There you go. Okay. If you've just joined us, we're talking to Madison de Rozario, world champion on the track, one of the fastest women in the world. And in fact, the current world record holder, as we say, in the 800 metres and in the 1,500 metres. But apparently we're just calling you Madison today because your name has just come up with the first name rather than the full. So is that a new thing? Should I be doing that?
No, that's just you being a professional and me not, apparently.
Hey, so welcome everybody online, and it's great that you're joining us. We've got a bunch of messages coming through to saying how thrilled everyone is to see you, Maddie, looking healthy and well, and the questions will come through shortly, I'm sure. Can we talk about competitors then for you? Names like Manuela Shah, the incredible Swiss athlete, Tatiana McFadden, and of course Australia's own Eliza Alt-Connell are names that come to mind for us. But are there others? There are other names that are on your radar, certainly across those events, that we should be looking at it for Tokyo next year?
Definitely. Look, I think every athlete that's going to line up to a final is going to be a contender, and I'm saying this from having experience of being that person no one expected too much of lining up for a race. And so I've also overlooked other athletes who I wasn't necessarily, incorporating into my race plan and being like unpleasantly surprised when they have come through with like an amazing move that I wasn't expecting. So we have our athletes like Manuela, Tatiana, Eliza, who have been consistent for the last 12 months and more, and have proven that they're going to be contenders. But we have people like Amanda McGrory, who has been on the scene for years and just had enormous success, and she's made a comeback, and she's beaten in the last couple of marathons when we've been out there. So yeah, I think that every name that's going to be on that start list for the final is worth watching.
Yeah, great. Now, some people may not know that your coach is our greatest ever Paralympian, Louise Savage, and we spoke to Louise last Tuesday. In fact, she was the first featured athlete for us, or coach, on Rolling Conversations. So tonight you've got the right of reply. Interested, what sort of coach is Louise Savage? We all know what an incredible athlete she was, but interested now as to what sort of coach she is. Give us an insight into Louise Savage, the coach.
She's an amazing coach. I'm just going to start with that. But I think the skill set and the value Lou brings wasn't necessarily what I would assume that someone Lou's skill set as an athlete would bring to it. She's obviously this incredible driving force behind everything that I do. And she's someone who I think sees more potential in me than I see in myself every day of the week. And it's not this kind of blind, I'm on your team, so I believe this for you. It's very real. It's grounded in my actual skills and my actual weaknesses. And that's so, I think, valuable to me. But I think the most amazing thing that Lou has brought to this is this kind of ability to recognize how different we are as athletes. And myself as an athlete now is about as far from Lou as an athlete you can possibly get. Lou is that fiery competitive. She's out there to win. There is no other option, and she's just this, would yell at someone on the track if they weren't racing like how they should be. And that's not maybe she would do that. She has done that. This is like a Lou move. And that's like the opposite of me. I struggled for a long time to work out how to make it work as an athlete, where I want to do this sport. I wanted to be the best in the world, but I didn't have that fiery competitive win at all costs drive. And to make all of those parts of me kind of work and to be the best version of an athlete that I could be, I have Lou to credit for that. And this wasn't something that Lou, I think consciously did. It's just who she is as a person, where she recognizes somebody in their entirety and works out what it is that I need to do for me to be the best version of myself. And while that was so different from everything that Lou is as an athlete, she was able to recognize that and see that and work with me as who I am to be the best athlete. And all the success that I have, I can credit to her and how we've approached racing. And we don't approach a race now with a goal to win it. We don't approach it with a time in mind. We approach an individual race with a very small set of goals. And if we execute those goals as we plan to, regardless of the result at the end of it, that was a good race. And if I win that race and we didn't execute those goals, then that was a bad race. And it's not about the result. And that's so different from how Lou would ever have approached, a race in her career. But the fact that she was able to be that person for me and completely embrace every part of who I am and work with that, I think is such a rare thing to be able to do so organically. And I've seen her do it for me, and I see her do it for the junior kids up and coming in the development group on Saturdays. And that's just who she is. So I think the most incredible thing about Lou as a coach is her just natural ability to be that person for other people.
No doubt about that, and a shout out to all of the juniors who you'll know really well, Maddie, and of course that you mentioned Louise trains on a Saturday morning, and many of whom are watching, as we know, online, and our best wishes go to them with their training and everything they're doing from home. Just remaining with Lou just for a second, if there was an 800-metre race with Louise at her peak and you at your peak, interested not so much in necessarily who would win, but how would you beat Louise? Like, how would you go about racing Louise at her peak? Are you different races in that sense? Is one a leader? Is one not a leader? Just interested in tactically, if Louise was at her peak, how would you approach racing her?
I think if I had to, this is such a hard one. I think if Lou and I were side by side and we could both see that finish line, Lou would win that race. Like, she just has this unreal drive, this ability to push her body to an extent that I have never seen before. So I think if I wanted to beat Lou in 800, it would have to be a smart race from the very beginning. And I would have to race that race. It would have to be the smartest race of my life if I wanted to beat Lou in an 800, because she's got that grind. She's just strong. She's fierce. And if she wants it, she'll get it. So I am grateful that Lou and my careers have not overlapped.
Indeed. And would you trash talk her?
Oh my God, no, she would do the trash talk and I would cry in the call room. That would be our relationship.
Gotcha. Okay, that's a big no then. Hey, we spoke about the young guns as well, and I'm interested in, for those of us who'll be watching Tokyo next year and perhaps even subsequent Paralympic Games, if we had a little black book, who would we be looking for as the emerging wheelchair racers? Probably focused on the Australians that we know. Who should we be? What are the names that we should be remembering and looking out for as the future of wheelchair racing in Australia?
We've got some up-and-coming wheelchair racers right now who have made their first teams. Robin Lambert is one. She's an athlete from WA. She's a sprinter. And there is so much potential there. She's one of those people who does want it, and she's creative. And so I'm interested to see how she approaches wheelchair racing to suit her personally. But wheelchair racing, we're a small group. But if we look at athletics as a whole, we right now have one of the youngest teams I've ever seen. And there is just the most incredible amount of potential in our overall athletics team. There's a girl named Brianna Clark. We shared an apartment together at Com Games, and she was at Worlds with us just now in Dubai. And she, came out of those Worlds with 2 bronze medals. And I'm going to get her age wrong, I think she's maybe 17. She's got so much ahead of her. We've got, like Sarah Walsh, a long jumper, who has just been making these progressions over the last couple of years, and in the last 12 months has just made enormous leaps and bounds. And we have so much potential. And I think this 12-month delay, I think it's going to be a good thing for us. We've got these young athletes who are really coming through, and that 12 months is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, great. Hey, I'm interested. We had some really good responses from the community, I suppose, that we would describe as the women in sport community. So Women's Sport Australia, promoted this afternoon's conversation, and the Sporting Sheilas, and a whole bunch of different wonderful advocates in the women in sport space. And as a father of a daughter at the moment, I'm just so thrilled with the zeitgeist around women's sport and how exciting the future is. You've been a big part of those conversations, and I know featured in a whole bunch of panels and different things. Interested as to who your female sporting heroes are, both potentially within Australia but around the world. Who do you look up to and aspire to be like?
There is so many. I feel like myself as an athlete, as a woman in sport, is just this combination of every woman that I've seen do incredible things, that I've seen something in it and wanted to add that to who I am. And obviously I'm going to say Lou from before I met her. Like, she was, the name in our sport, and such a strong woman. Other women in our sport, like Chantal Petitclerc was, my first games in Beijing, she was retiring on 5 gold medals, and she was just this powerhouse of an athlete. And then if we look at, I was on a panel recently with Lisa Jones, and she's amazing, and I learned so much from her as an athlete. And I think you hear these people speak, and you just add to it. And there's no one person that I would say that's who, but I think I'm seeing women in sport and women in every industry across the world really taking control of the narrative. And I feel like in the past we've just been fighting for space, and it's just been this constant we need loud voices to be heard, to take up this space, and we now have it. And I think no one's taking it lightly. We fought hard to get that space, and so I think now I see incredible women just using that space to be very authentic, and I'm getting to see these women just thrive and be so real. And that's kind of what pushes us. I think as athletes, there's this stereotype of what it takes to be good, and it's a very masculine, I think, mold we're trying to fit, where it is that kind of, fiery, competitive, borderline arrogance kind of a thing. And the more female athletes I get to know, the more I realize that we're not like that. If we, look at Ash Barty, for example, she is the most incredible, soft-spoken woman, and she's just an amazing athlete. And if we look at how, like, Morgan Mitchell conducts herself in an interview after a heartbreaking result, they're the women that I see that I want, to be like in some small way.
G'day, we're back.
Back.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear.
Great. Apologies, everybody. Obviously, there's lots of live streaming going on at the moment, so some of that sort of stuff happens, but we appear to be back. So please do send us a message and let us know we're coming through loud and clear. So, Maddie, we were finishing off talking about women in sport there. And so, you were just saying what an incredible movement it is, and how lucky you are to be a part of it, perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, basically, I'm hearing voices that I've never heard for the first time, that have always existed, that we have the space to be authentic without the pressure to be something we're not at the moment. And I think that's encouraging so many people. It's encouraging myself 12 years into a career to be more authentic. And I can't imagine the effect that it's having, on our younger, girls and women getting involved in sport and every industry. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, it really is. Hey, and one of the things that happened recently, and we mentioned at the start, is that you were made into a Barbie doll.
Yes.
How very exciting. Now, I think this is time for show and tell. Have you got the Barbie doll there to show us?
Yes, I do. I do have it. This is Barbie me.
Sure. How did that make you feel? Must have been an amazing moment.
It's I think it's got to be one of the highest compliments I've ever been paid. It's the fact that a brand with a platform like Mattel, like Barbie, reached out and wanted to collaborate on something like this, when there's so many incredible women, and the more I found out about the brand, the more it was in line with values that I already hold. And so to be seen as someone worth working with by a brand that is so in line with my own beliefs is incredibly flattering. And one of the big things that Barbie is working hard on is what we're framing as the dream gap. And it's this idea, this concept that girls after a certain age, and it's a really young age, don't believe that they can be anything they want to be. It's that piece around, you ask a bunch of kids under 5, draw a scientist, and the boys will draw boy scientists and the girls will draw girl scientists. And after 5, you ask that same question to the same kids, and everyone in that room, boys and girls, are drawing boy scientists. And there's this point when we're very, very young, we stop believing we can be anything. And Barbie is working so hard to combat that. from the ground, like, directly to kids, and by showing so much like authentic diversity in their range. And yeah, and so to be aligned with a brand like that, it's a huge compliment.
It's awesome. And were you happy with the finished product? What do you think the likeness is like?
Oh, it's so cool. It's so strange seeing yourself as a doll. But yeah, down to all the details, all the finger tattoos are there, all the rings are there. Like, yeah, no, the detail is amazing.
Excellent. Yeah, we were thrilled to see it, and our community just thought it was fantastic. In fact, everyone wants to know where to buy one, but I don't know that they are available in Australia, are they?
No, they're not. They're not available. So it's kind of it's a global campaign. So there are about 30 countries around the world who, picked a woman and had her made into a doll. And so it is a one of a kind doll, but they're releasing a bunch of different sports at the moment. So we'll see what comes of that.
Very cool. Hey, we've got a question coming in, and please do send your questions in if you're out there looking on. Karen's asking, can I see your puppy?
Oh, he was behind me and he just ran, but he'll come back and I'll bring him into the frame.
So for those of us who do follow your Instagram account, your dog gets a lot of airtime, let's be honest. Tell us a little bit about how long have you had, it's Sebastian, isn't it?
Yeah, so he's 2.5 now. So I had him since just before Games, actually. Yeah, February that year. And he's just the best. He's so much work. He needs so much attention. He's a little drama queen, but I love him so much.
And what type of dog is he?
He's a miniature pincher, so like a tiny Doberman.
Right, okay. But with a big bark or?
Oh my God, he's got a loud bark for a small dog. Like my neighbors, when they met him for the first time, they're like, "Oh, we thought he was way bigger. Like he's tiny."
Well, it's better than the alternative, a very big dog with a very small bark.
It's a very good point.
Indeed. Hey, and we're just we're getting some questions coming in now, so I'll throw those across to you in a second. Can I ask you though, have you thought about life after wheelchair racing at this stage? Have you got any plans career-wise? Would you follow Louise's footsteps and go into coaching? What are your ideas for life after sport?
I think to be a coach, you have to be a very specific kind of person. I'm not sure I have what it takes. I think that Australia is uh, Australia has the potential, I think, to be the most accepting and incredible place to be as a person with a disability, as a woman, as any kind of minority. And I think I want to use the platform that sport is going to help me build to make that a reality. I think we globally we have a ways to go. There's so much more education. There's so much we need to learn and to really understand to reach that point. But I think you need individual voices in that conversation to make those changes. And I think I want to use the platform that sport is going to afford me to be one of those voices.
Yeah, very cool. Pat asks, well, he mentions Australia being so fortunate to have so many wheelchair track and road legends in the past and also currently. Do you feel lucky having lots of athletes growing up to look up to as well as current Aussie athletes to be competitive with? And has this helped you during your career?
100%. I think one of the big things we talk about with women in sport is that if you can't see it, you can't be it. There's this thing around visibility that you need pathways to follow. And in Australia, we're definitely ahead of the curve. We do have those names. I'm so lucky to be racing in a time where we have household names. That's the thing we have in Australia. People know our Paralympians. And so, yeah, I had a pathway to follow. I didn't have to forge that myself. And I'm very grateful for that. And being able to race in Australia and have incredibly competitive athletes, right there makes a huge difference. Like getting to, go through training for London, training for Rio with Angie by my side, having the world record holder in one of my events right there makes a huge difference. And now having moved to the longer stuff, having Eliza there just like constantly breathing down my neck every race is definitely keeping me going. Yeah, it's a great community that we have, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah, it certainly is a great community. And we're very lucky to have you as a member of Wheelchair Sports New South Wales. So again, thank you for giving us your time today. So we've got a question. When you hit a roadblock in your goals, either physically or mentally, how do you get past that? And that comes from Chrissy Edwards.
They're definitely two different approaches. For me, mentally, if I'm mentally struggling with anything, it's about revisiting my reasons for being there in the place. And if those reasons at that point in time don't check out anymore, then that isn't worth it. But if there's a reason you're doing something, and I think it's so important to work out your why very early on in that conversation, because there's going to be challenges, things are going to hurt or be difficult, or roadblocks are going to be there. And when we do come up against them, it's about revisiting why we're doing it in the first place and why it's worth all the effort. Physically, I think I've had a lot of challenges with, and it's been a lot of conversations with my sports psych around recognizing that physical pain is an indicator of a warning. It's not actually something having gone wrong yet. Until you physically cannot do it, you are able to do it. And the pain is basically your body saying, like, maybe we should stop, but you don't have to. It's like a tentative, let's reconsider this. And you can totally overwrite that. And that's, I think, a skill that I've been trying to get better at, in the last year. But yeah, they're definitely two very different approaches.
Yeah, interesting. The next question comes from Garth, and it's about how many sessions do you do in a week and what type of sessions are they?
In a regular training week, if I'm not training on my patio in isolation, it is about between 9 and 10 sessions a week. 6 or 7 of those are in the race chair and 3 are in the gym. And the 3 in the gym are made up of 2 volume sessions and then 1 kind of like a heavier lifting session. The chair sessions there's a bit more of a range to it. So we'll do some on the roads. I'll be out there, with Lou on her hand bike. And we'll do sessions on the road, some on the track. But then we do some really interesting stuff indoors. And we have 2 kinds of stationary ways of training. We have a treadmill, which has been a tool we've kind of added to the program more recently. And we can change the elevation of what we're training. And so we can basically program in the course for Boston, the course for London, and train that specific course, which has been hugely beneficial to the work we've been doing. And the last one is rollers. And again, it's a stationary tool that we'll often put in the climate chamber. So we'll be training there at altitude with heat and humidity, which has been incredible with training for Tokyo, and with the last couple of worlds being in Doha and Dubai, it was what we used to acclimatize for that.
Yeah, great. Our next question is from Samuel, and he says, how important are your training partners to your process?
I don't train with really any athletes in Sydney. I have in the past, and it's been amazing getting to push each other. So Angie was my training partner for quite a while, and it had its pros and cons, to be honest. Like, there was the definite benefit of getting to push someone, but then there were also sessions where you're starting where that athlete is significantly better than you at that session. So it was hard to wrap your head around how to get the best out of that whilst knowing, and that worked both ways. If we had a longer session, I knew like I was all over it, and if we had a sprint session, Ange was gonna just clean the floor with me. And like going into a session knowing that is kind of challenging. So right now it's mostly Lou and I just training together with different cyclists, and I found for me, I love that, but I love how individual my sport is as well.
No, so David asks, can I come with you if you ever meet The Rock? Now, for those who don't know, we mentioned it at the start, and you're very well branded today. You're a global ambassador for Under Armour. So one of the other global ambassadors, of course, is The Rock. Any chance David could tag along?
David, you ask me this question every time we have a meeting together. Like, if it happens, you will be my person.
I think that's a no. So we've only got a minute or so left. The other thing we did promise that we'd speak about, and in fact it relates to David, is from all reports, or the rumours are, that you're a very good mixer of vodka sodas. In fact, you may lay claim to being the best vodka soda mixer in Australia. What's that about?
Okay, this started with David making fun of me. We were out drinking after Oz Day this year, and we went to this place that was like renowned for doing like great margaritas, and it was like amazing. Except I have this thing where like I get nervous if I don't know what a drink is going to taste like, and so I'll be like, yeah, we're going to try this, it's going to be great, and then I'll get there, and then I'll like throw the chicken out and order something that like I know that I'm going to like. And so that's vodka soda. It's the most boring drink you can possibly imagine. It's literally a vodka and water. And so to make that more interesting, I have this little sister who's very creative, and she makes drinks fancy. And so now when KJ and I, my sister and I, drink our vodka sodas, it's like got rosemary and blueberries and like grapefruit in it. And they don't add anything to it. It's purely for looks. And so you don't feel like you're drinking the most boring thing in the world.
Sure, because I was going to say, at its basic form, it's vodka and soda, right? Like how creative.
The 2 ingredients are in the title, yeah.
There you go. Hey, Maddie, I just wanted to close by asking if there's any message you wanted to send out. As I said, there are lots of young athletes watching on tonight. Many of them you'll know, and some of them you won't know. But if a lot of people are, may well be doing it tough in isolation and trying to keep up their motivation for training and all the rest of it, just an opportunity to send a message out to our community tonight.
Look, I think we need to be okay with the fact that our idea of 100% has changed right now. If you put us in ideal training situations, work situations, everything, our idea of 100% is up here, and we hold ourselves to that standard. And I think in isolation right now, things are difficult. Even if you have access to all the things that you have access to, we've all had some kind of a loss in this situation, and we're all witnessing something that we've never witnessed before. There is suffering on an enormous scale that we're not necessarily equipped to deal with. And so it's okay for our idea of 100% to be a bit lower, and we have to celebrate our new 100% as much as we would what our 100% was a month ago, knowing that it will change, once this is over.
Well said, Maddie. That's going to finish us today. We want to say thank you. You're a superstar athlete, but we think you're a superstar person as well, and you're a much-loved member of our community. So this is really what Rolling Conversations is about, is connecting people and having these great conversations, learning more about you. And I know everyone online will be as excited as we are at Wheelchair Sports New South Wales to see what you can do in Tokyo next year. So good luck with the training in isolation, and thanks very much for your time. It was a thrill to chat to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Maddie. See you later, everybody.